Tonight is the high-stakes debate for the race for the White House. It will air right here on WUSA 9 at 9 p.m. Former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore, who ran in the Republican presidential primary back in 2016, and then before that in 2008, joins us via Zoom now. Governor, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you, Simone.
I wanted to jump right in because there's a lot going on tonight, and I wanted to start with this. Who has more at stake tonight? Former President Trump, Vice President Harris, or, in your opinion, maybe both of them?
I think Kamala Harris has more at stake in this debate. President Trump's a known commodity. People are used to him. They know he presents himself as a strong leader in the debate. That's what really knocked President Biden out of the campaign. But on the other hand, nobody really knows anything about Kamala Harris. She was very unnoticeable as vice president. She hasn't run in any of the primaries, so we really don't know anything about what she thinks about policy other than her previous statements. Now she's saying that all of her previous statements are no longer operable, and now she's different. She's going to have to explain that kind of change and whether that's an honest change or whether it's not true.
Well, I wanted to expand on that a little bit more because, in terms of substance versus style, I'm curious, what does each candidate need to accomplish tonight? What do they need to communicate to voters who are maybe undecided?
Well, I think you're right that in my experience was that, and of course the debates were different then, but my experience is that the public is going to first take an impression of the two candidates. They're going to try to determine who can actually handle the challenges facing the United States today, whether it's going to be President Trump or whether it's going to be Kamala Harris. I think that's the first thing that's going to happen. But if this debate gets off into policy, into a real discussion of policy, then I think at that point, Kamala Harris is going to have to explain some of the sort of the economic ideas that she's put out there. Raising taxes on capital gains. We're in the middle of a recession, so she wants to discourage investment. This taxing of unrealized income. There's just kind of crazy kind of ideas. The idea that somehow people are gouging, and so when we do price controls, nobody in economics thinks that's a good idea anymore. So I think she could be confronted with those issues, not to mention the border issue, where the only really thing that President Biden asked her to do was the border. And of course, as we know, that's a hot issue in this debate.
Okay, how about this? So in terms of what candidates shouldn't do tonight, for each of them, what would you say? What would be something that would be important for them to stay away from?
Well, I think that President Trump clearly should not get into a name-calling contest with Kamala Harris. That does nothing but advantage her. I believe that she will do a large number of personal attacks on President Trump because that's what she's been doing. And I think that's really all they've got. If they're getting over into the issues of foreign policy, with Afghanistan, with the Israeli issue, when you get over into the issue of economics, as I laid out, we get into the border. These are great, giant weaknesses for the Democratic ticket. And as a result, I think that they'll just do a lot of name calling. But President Trump shouldn't rally to that. He should stick with the policies, and I think he's going to be okay.
Okay, in terms of, some of the recent polling numbers we're seeing some razor thin margins of error in battle states here. And so I wanted to talk about our independent and our moderate conservative voters in terms of, if you think they could end up deciding this election. And I'm curious, what does Mr. Trump need to do in this instance to bring them into his wheelhouse?
I think that if he looks, as your other guest said, stable, he looks like a person who's prepared to deal with the issues that are at hand, which I think are so troubling to the people of this country, then I think he's going to be okay. I just think that he has to avoid any kind of personal attacks. But I think that right now, if he presents himself well the way that he did in the debate against President Biden, I think he's going to win. And as I've said, I really think that the pressure here, well, the pressure's on both because it's a national forum. I was there and I felt a lot of pressure when I was trying to do it. But again, Trump's been doing this. He's been doing these debates, and Kamala Harris really has not. So I think that the pressure is more on her to try to produce in this debate than it is on him.
All right, last question for you. This is something we've come across time and time again. Neither candidate, they really haven't spent a lot of time together over their political careers. How much does that play into tonight's debate, their performances, and maybe what people will be watching for?
Well, I think you're right. In fact, I think they've spent no time together. I think this is the first time they've ever been together. But on the other hand, the setting is the setting. People know what's going to happen tonight. They know what the debate's really all about. So I don't think that's so much a concern of the unfamiliarity. To your point, I really think that the people who are swing voters in the various swing states are going to be basically wanting to be reassured by Trump, and they're going to have to get to know Kamala Harris and try to understand why she has said some of these things that she has said, and why she's now changing now, and whether that's genuine or dishonest. I think these are the questions that the public's going to be looking for, particularly in the swing states.
All right, it's a big night, a lot of pressure, a lot of eyeballs, and look, we certainly appreciate your time and expertise. Former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Simone.